This week's episodes were brought to you by the generous support of Andrew Henninger. Hey you folks, Quill18 here, and welcome to another Unity tutorial for our base building game, codenamed Project Porcupine. Currently, we're in a state where we have working doors. They don't visually do anything, but if we go and tell our character to build a wall over here, you'll see he'll walk up to the door, wait while it opens up, and then pass through it. We also have doors that work both in this sort of horizontal setup and also over here, but the graphics don't update sideways. Right, so we do technically have a working door over here that we can walk through, but it looks kind of silly. And actually, the last thing is, we currently let you build doors anywhere. So we've got a door right there in the middle of our area, which doesn't necessarily make any sense. Also, currently, right now, we treat the doors as having a movement cost of exactly one, the same as any other tile. But what we might want to do is change it so that we tell the pathfinding system that it has a movement cost slightly above 1. Even like, 1.01 or something like that, just to encourage characters to move around it in these situations, right? It might be a little easier than waiting for the door to walk through. But technically, you do walk through the door at full speed. But we'll see about massaging that later on. So what we're going to do is mostly work from the visual point of view here. I'm not going to care. Right now, I'm not going to do the thing to stop us from being able to plant a door over there quite yet. That'll come next. But we're going to try to get these graphics to A, rotate properly, and B, actually animate when the door is opening and closing. So let's talk about a couple things. First of all, I have gone and updated our little graphic over here to just have the 4 door versions. You can see I had the version up here for the vertical orientation. I don't think we're going to use this. There are 2 ways to approach object rotation in a 2D game like this. What we could have is, like, let's say we're building a sofa. Okay, we could have 4 different versions of a sofa graphic for each possible orientation. And that will work well if there needs to be some sort of special shading, like we want to take into account shadows and light and whatever. Because obviously the light direction has to be the same no matter what way the sofa is facing. So if the light is supposed to be to the right, therefore the shadow has to be to the left. So no matter if our sofa is facing north, south, east, or west, we got to make sure that the shadow is always on the left-hand side, for example. Right? So that would be one thing. Also, if we're doing sort of a quasi isometric thing. But then we do have to have all these 4 different versions, whereas alternatively, we could just have one graphic that we literally just rotate to the right direction. For the sake of simplicity and minimal graphic work right now, I'm going to assume we're going to have one version of the graphic that we're going to rotate, but we could always change that later on. So as such, we're not going to use this version of the door. We'll basically just use this version of the door and just give it a 90-degree rotation, depending on the direction of the doorway. However, I think I'm going to start with the animation. Because the animation actually has a few more questions that we want to answer. Oops, I actually just accidentally created a sprite over there. Let me just revert and cancel out of this. For the door opening, I mean, the typical way to do that sort of thing in Unity is to actually construct an animation here in Unity, and then load the sprites and put them on a timeline, maybe create an animation controller, and have the animation controller have a parameter in there, and the parameter can be set in a script, and the parameter controls which of the various sprites that we might show, yada, yada, yada. But there's a few reasons we're not going to go and do that for this project. First reason is because we're really working towards this idea of having a lot of modability. And basically, we're going to, right now, all of our files, even our graphics and whatnot, are currently part of the Unity project. So they just get bundled up into a sort of Unity package. But later on, I think we're all going to enjoy the idea that these various graphics and sprites and stuff like that will probably be external to Unity, and therefore people could make mods that sort of swap or replace the graphics or do something of that nature, and including our configuration files for, say, what our furniture is, right? Because we've talked about before, right now we sort of hard code in our furniture in this world script. I should have had this open first. Right, so we have our create furniture prototype script over here, or function over here, but this is really going to be replaced by something that reads a text file in the future. So with the idea of sort of modability and changeability later on, we're going to employ the same sort of thing and not have animation and animation controllers in Unity because it's not really possible to modify those outside of the program. You can generate them procedurally, in a sense after reading a text file, but I think that would be too much work. The other thing is, an animation would normally be timed. You can sort of scrub through the animation based on some other parameter, but not really. I mean, mostly it's mostly of a 3D thing. If you have two 3D poses, you can sort of blend between two poses based on a third parameter or something like that. But here in this case, we don't really want to do that. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to show one of these four graphics based on the state of openness of a door. So maybe we'll show this one if a door is at 0 openness. We'll show this one if it's at 1. And then this one will be if it's somewhere between, let's call it something like if the state of openness is between, say, 0.1 and 0.5, we'll show this one. If it's between 0.5 and 0.9, we'll show this one. And this will be from 0.9 to 1, and this one will be from 0 to 0.1 or something like that. So we'll use a certain amount of program logic to put in there. We might completely change how things work later on, especially as we consider more and more modding flexibility. But for now, we're going to go with a certain amount of hard-codedness for our door animation solution, because we'll get to the point where we're happy with how it kind of works, and then we'll look at, okay, now how do we generalize this to work for all kinds of furniture and whatnot. But our first pass at this is going to be, we're just going to get it to work for the door, and then we'll figure out how to make it work better. Is this... Okay, yeah, it's just the white line over here. I thought there was like a pixel where it wasn't actually covered, but no, we are fine. All right, so let's just close that off. No, just revert. We're good where we were. So we've got this door over here. So to start with this sort of hard-coded idea. So how does it work? Well, we have a furniture sprite controller. It generates a furniture sprite for us right now, right? And a furniture sprite is just a game object that has a sprite component on it. And that's it. And in here, we keep this dictionary that maps from a piece of furniture to that game object. And also, when we create a sprite for a piece of furniture, we also attach a function for onFurnitureChange. So whenever a piece of furniture changes, this gets called, at which point we make sure that the correct graphic is set up. But this would also be a great spot for, if this is a door, let's check openness, which does have two ends, and I think I have to check that for our actual door. Over here, I have openness spelled wrong if I recall correctly. There've probably been a million people have told me about it. Yeah, openness has two ends, so you got to set that there. And the other place we have to fix this is in our furniture actions script. We just have to make sure we're using openness instead of openness, which is just wrong. I guess I could have done a find and replace. Actually, I still could, because I think this has a, if we use, yeah, replace in files. I want like all files. Find openness with one N, replace with openness with two, whole solution, replace. I think it might have found one more. Oh, in the comments. Okay, so I had actually done it all. Excellent, good, groovy. Okay, so where was it? Oh yeah, in our script over here. Let's check openness and update the sprite or something of that nature. Yeah. So what are our sprites called right now? Well, my base sprite is just called door, which I think is fine. And then I've got these three other names, which we might want to call something else later on. We might want to do something. For now, again, I'll just sort of keep going on the hard-coded route. And then again, we'll figure out a way to generalize it after we know that the general idea works, okay? So, if fern dot object type is equal to door. So, fix me. All this hard coding needs to be generalized later. Okay, so this is just temporary stuff. So if the furniture is a door, then what we do is we play the right animation. So we say, all right, if, we guess we do a, well, we can't really do a switch because we need ranges and, yeah, okay, it's fine. If fern dot, what are params? Fern params openness is, let's say, less than 0.1. Then door is closed. So we'll make sure we're using that sprite. So we're going to say, well, not get sprite for fern. Well, actually we can, can't we? Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. When we get the sprite for the furniture, that's where we'll put this code in here. Get declaration. So there we go. We do some stuff over here, and then yeah, we're gonna put in some stuffs over here. If the furniture, which is what? Obj. Why'd call it obj instead of fern? Fern. Boom. If fern object type is door, check the openness, And then door is closed, so we're going to say sprite name. And again, for now, we're hard coding this in. So we're going to say door underscore openness. No openness. It's just called door, which is what it's normally going to be anyway. Then we're going to put in an else if. And all this hard coding, hopefully we'll fix later. Okay, so at this point, we know it's not that. If it's under 0.5, is a bit open. So it's door underscore openness 1. Else, if it's under 0.9, is a lot open, which is this one. And then else, door is fully open. Get rid of the extra A and set this to 3. All right, so it's all hard-coded for now, which isn't great, but isn't too bad. So, excuse me, right now, it won't quite be done yet, but let's go ahead and hit a play. Make sure we haven't broken anything. I'll load the save, picking the right graphic there. We'll put in another one just for the sake of argument. Okay, excellent. So the graphic isn't being updated yet, and why is it? Well, the reason it's not being upgraded yet is because onFurnitureChange is not being called. It's being called once, basically, when we set up the furniture, and that's it, right? We create the furniture, which registers this callback, and that's it. OnFurnitureChange needs to be changed when the openness of a door changes. And where does that happen? That happens here in Furniture Actions. So what we're going to do is, let's just call it every time. Every time a door update action gets run, let's call the change status, which is definitely going to be a bit overkill, but it may not be a problem. We'll revisit it later, but let's assume that it changes every round. So we're going to say fern dot, what is it, the callback, change. Can I not call it from here? Is the furniture callback? Yeah, that probably makes sense. Of course, it would be protected or private. So I'm trying to call the callback on changed over here. But it's protected. I didn't make it public, so I can't call it directly from here. We could make it public, and then I could call it from here. But what would probably be better, actually, is if we didn't write to the furniture parameters directly. You know what I mean? If we had a function to update these. You know what? Let's make it public. It's fine. We're going to go back and make things protected later on. But for now, let's make it public, which is going to be okay at short term. And we're just going to make sure we call this directly. Again, first priority, get things to work. Get things to work in a way that hopefully doesn't, leave you completely in a bind later on. But for now, just get things working. So let's flip out over here. Does not take 0 arguments. Right, because we actually have to pass the furniture in that. So now, let's load, and let's try to build a wall on the other side here. Curious. It's definitely running the door update code. Certainly calling this a lot. I mean, it's definitely running this code because the door is opening and letting us pass through it. This is all running. And also, I should probably make sure this isn't null, because at some point it probably will be for some things. So let's make sure it's not null, just in case. Although it really should never be, now that I think about it. Let's do that. So onCallbackChange should be getting called, which is over here. This function should be getting called. Let's make sure that it is. Load. Furniture changes called a bunch. And it's actually being called every single frame. So this is being called, but it's not getting the sprite that I want. Why is that? Get sprite for furniture. Why is this not happening? Debug.log is door. And then, actually, let's just return the sprite name here. That will be sufficient to confirm that things are or are not being run properly. Let's see here. Load. Oh, on furniture change is being called, but this isn't getting here. Is the object type not door? Are we returning too early? Oh, because it doesn't link to neighbor. Right. Let's change some of this logic, because right now it's returning immediately. There's a couple of different ways you can change logic. I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this and just put it in here. If it doesn't link to neighbor, do still check the door stuff. String sprite name is equal to that. Actually, I suppose we could just move this to outside. That'd be fine. Return. Here it's going to be sprite name, and we just do that. Okay, we will have to clean that all up definitely later on. I don't like functions that get that long, and obviously things are doing a lot of things in an intuitive way. There we go, returning door, 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 and if we do this, oh, I don't have my my pivot points set correctly on these sprites, because they should all be bottom left. Can I not multi-select? I guess not. So, bottom left. Bottom left. And bottom left. Apply. Let's try that again. Load. Build a wall down here. And you can see the door opening up. Now, is that the smoothest animation? No. What might we want to do about it? There's a lot of things we could do about it. First of all, rather than actually, have discrete animations, we could just slide things over. There's all kinds of different ways. We could have more steps to the animation. I think just having it be faster might be good. And honestly, I'm not even sure we necessarily need the animation. We could just have it like, wait, and then the door is open, and then you go, and it's closed. I don't know. Right now, the doors were set to open very slowly, just to, just so that we knew for sure our character was stopping. But our initial plan was to do something like this. For now, let's make the doors open and close 4 times as fast. So we're just hard coding this in, fix me. Maybe a door open speed parameter. It's easy to imagine different doors that have different speeds to open and close, sort of thing that should be read from a text configuration file. But now I think just by accelerating the rate at which the door opens and closes, see, that all of a sudden looks way more reasonable. If you have an animation that's very long or very slow, you need a lot more steps to make sure it's smooth. The fact that it's so quick right now actually looks halfway decent. We also might want to just, change how many, even if we don't change how many steps there are, we might want to change, what's the word I'm looking for? We might want to change, just like where the cuts are. Maybe this sort of way of cutting it, it doesn't lead to the most organic looking door opening. But it's working for now, and I'm going to call that good enough. Okay, so the next problem we're going to tackle is this door here. We want it to be rotated so that it looks appropriate. Now that is purely a visual thing. In terms of data, the doors don't have an orientation. They have just a specific mechanic for when you try to walk through a tile that has a door. The only thing we want to change is the visual side of things. And we can do that pretty easily. Where do we actually set the graphics up? Well, we know we set the graphics for this object here. On furniture created is where we create the game object and we assign the sprite. We also update the sprite from time to time over here. But this is where we create the game object. It's very easy for us to go and put in a little bit of code here. So again, fix me. This hard coding is not ideal, right? On the other hand, it'll be fine for now, and I don't know how many things are going to need to be rotated this way. But for now, let's get it to work, and then later on, we'll get it to work better. So if fern dot object type is equal to door, then what we're going to do is check the adjacent tiles, check to see, by default, the door graphic is meant for walls to the east and west. Check to see if we actually have a wall north, south, and if so, then rotate this game object by 90 degrees. That's it. Very simple little fix to put that in there. And it's sort of a hard-coded fix, a hard-coded hack in here to get it to work. And later on, we'll see if we can't generalize it in some way. Because later on, we might have different type of door objects. We might have window-type things and all these other things that we might want to have auto-rotate in a sensible way. And we might want a special flag for that. Just like we currently have a special flag for, like, links to common neighbors. A door doesn't link to common neighbors. It specifically links to walls, which is a very different sort of thing. So we're going to say something like, do we have access to the world? We do. We can say world.getTileAt, because we have our current coordinates. Well, the furniture has a current coordinate. So we're going to say getTileAt furniture dot tile.x. So on the same x column, but we're going to get the one above us, which is going to be furniture.tile.y plus 1. And you know what? It's a little silly, but let's go ahead and create some dummy placeholders here. So north tile is equal to this. And south tile, which is this one. There's a chance they're null if we're right at the top or bottom of the map. I don't know what we're going to want to do there. Frankly, a door doesn't logically make sense there. But so we'll put in a first check. If north tile not equals null, and south tile not equals null, and north tile dot furniture dot not equals null, and south tile dot furniture not equals null. So they have they both tiles exist. Both tiles have furniture that exists, and north tile dot furniture dot object type is equal to wall, and south tile dot furniture dot object type is equal to wall. And again, this is all nasty hard coding, but get it to work and then generalize it later. So we know that we have a tile to the north and south and west that both contain a wall. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our current game object and its transform and its rotation, and we're just going to set it to have a 90-degree rotation around the z-axis. So it's going to be a new vector 3, 0, 0, 90. Oops, rotation, no. Hang on a sec. It's going to be a quaternion from an Euler set of coordinates, which is the 0, 0, 90. The Euler one will take degrees as opposed to radians. So this should have a 90-degree rotated game object. The game object itself is going to be rotated, which should be perfectly fine, I think. So let's see what happens. Hit play. Oops, I think I hit it twice. Let's try that again. And load. Okay, that door is still fine. What about this door? Right. So now I'm being punished for the fact that I have the anchor point over here. So if we check the rotation, as I rotate around the Z, see what happened? We rotated there. If I was using the center point as our rotation point, then this would make life a lot better. I might, simply on the basis of this, change things. It would also make life a lot easier if I didn't have to constantly reset it. Having the coordinate or the anchor point be at the bottom left corner makes some mouse calculations a lot simpler. That being said, there might only be one place in the whole game where we have to worry about resetting the taking into account the change. We'd have to shift the mouse over by half a unit just to make our tile selection a little bit stronger. Although, really, we're not using the numerical stuff from the mouse, are we? Aren't we doing a raycast to see what we're over? I mean, we can fix this. There's other ways that we can certainly fix this. Unfortunately, we can't rotate the sprite. We can mirror it internally, but we can't just rotate the sprite itself. If it had a subcomponent, it could. I mean, in a sense, what we're be also doing is, with a 90-degree rotation, if we did offset the graphic by 1, then that would also work. And I mean, I could do that, It starts to get real ugly, and I'm not really happy about that. Oh. Let's move this here. Let's do the rotation after we set the position and the parent. So we've set the transform position, set the parent, then we're going to set its rotation. And then, and this is really hackish, .transform.translate. We're just going to tell it to move over by 1 unit in the X. Until we figure out, how we want to deal with this in the future. Ugly hack to compensate for bottom left anchor point. Maybe I'll just change the sprite inputs. But let's see. Load. Build door. Now the preview still doesn't get updated. But that works. And if we save and reload, it's got the correct graphics. Now everything looks fine over here. It'll play the animation correctly and everything. So, a bit of an ugly hack there, which is fine. We don't get the preview when we build it. I mean, that one's obviously correct, but the other one was not. If we go pathfinding test, oh, no, new world, pathfinding test, build the door over here. Now, where does the preview get set up? I believe that is, I'm not sure, is it job sprite controller over here? So we'd have to add the same sort of hack right here. This is where it creates the sprite for the door. So we'd have to check, is it a door? Should the door be rotated 90 degrees? Okay, rotate it 90 degrees and offset it. Or don't offset it, depending on how we set our sprite. But I talked about before that I wasn't quite happy that we're sort of writing this get sprite for furniture code twice. And it's almost like this get sprite for furniture, this thing here, should almost be the thing responsible for orientating sideways. Or right here, this one here, get sprite for furniture. This is based on a string. This one is based on an actual piece of furniture. But ultimately, it would be nice maybe if a rotation was here. So it's starting to make me wonder if we shouldn't have an image for it or something. Because, again, you can't just rotate a sprite as far as I know. We change the pivot point. But yeah. So the question is, do we want multiple graphics? It would open up the possibility to make somewhat more interesting things later on. Did I break all my buttons? Oh no, there they go. That was weird. And again, I would like the job sprite controller to be a little bit better. So right now, get sprite for furniture does not require you to tell you where in the world it's going to be placed. So this cannot return the correct sprite based on neighbors. We really do have to rotate it after the fact. So the rotation really does have to exist here. I guess for now, and again, anytime you duplicate code, it's usually a sign that something's not quite right. But for now, we're going to grab this hard coding of the door, and we're going to do the same thing here. Where do we get the furniture type? Do we get the furniture type? Job object type. Like that. And it's job.tile. And how do we get the world? Is it job.world? Job.tile.world? Yeah. There you go. That gets us an instance of the world. And our... called the job game object transform. So there we go. So now when we put down our wall job, hit pathfinding test, build door here, the sprite will already be rotated correctly. There we go. So this is just a purely visual thing. Oh, and then there's the other thing is if we had a door, I mean, I guess we probably don't want doors to just stand in the middle of nowhere, but if we did, And then later on we say, I want to build a wall here and here, except we can't because of things. If I built a wall here and here, then I would want this door to rotate the right way around. Graphics were getting a bit choppy there. The reason for it is because we had lots of doors and all of them were spamming the hell out of the log, both here and, oh, maybe that was it. Oh, and here. There we go. Each door was spamming the hell out of the log, which tends to slow things down. So again, not happy. It's not that I'm not happy. It's that we don't have the final implementation. This is not what the final implementation will work like, but at least things are starting to look a little bit better. And for now, that's going to be okay. We're going to leave them in there and move to another topic. And especially as we develop more and more furniture, at some point we'll get a better understanding of how we want to structure more of our furniture stuff. But we have doors that work, and they work really well right now. Code's a bit clumsy, but it works well. Speaking of clumsy code, I did have, oh, where's that email? What was your name? Right over here. I did get some feedback from viewer Ricardo, who pointed out in our character script over here, we have, where is it? This code right over here. I think at some point, and clearly there were a couple of passes at this code, which is why we still have this comment here, but it also left this artifact here of a bit of a duplicate check that is clearly not needed. I think there was more code wrapped around there, but we can get rid of the extra if because it doesn't do anything right now. We may as well just clean that up. And the other little cleanup is, oh, right, this is probably something I will keep in, but in our tile code, click, and open up. We're getting the movement cost. Here we're multiplying the furniture's movement cost by 1, which is clearly not necessary. We could just return it directly. That's exactly the same. That was in there as sort of a placeholder to remind us that there might be a different base tile movement cost. I could put in a comment, or maybe I'll make it explicit. I'll put in a float, and this is something like base tile movement cost equals 0. You know, fix me. This is just hard-coded for now, you know, something of that nature. And we're going to return this and that. You know, it could be a const. Maybe, but maybe it should be something else. So right now it's kind of pointless, but we might change that later. We might want to have different tile types return different movement costs. Here we sort of have, again, everything kind of hard-coded in here. This is just sort of a placeholder, you know, reminder for now. Basically, just a reminder of something we might want to do more with in the future. This will all be a very fast operation that gets heavily optimized by the compiler. So we're not going to be in dire straits with that. But did point out that was a silly little thing, but the reason for it is just this sort of reminder. But the other cleanup is quite nice. That was a leftover of some extra little noisy, messy code. So we're moving ahead. Again, we're trying to go kind of fast and just get things done as the first thing. But hey, listen, we have doors that look correct at this point. They animate in a very cool way. Very excellent. Not sure what the next thing we're going to do. There's certainly more things I could do with the door here, especially with the placement, because again, we could do something like this with doorways. What the hell does that mean? Like, I don't know. Do we want to allow that? And that's less of a game engine question. That's more of a user interface question. Do we want the user interface to sort of look at the situation and be like, though this is dumb, there's no reason to ever do anything like this, so let's just prevent the user from doing that. Maybe you can't click drag doors. Maybe you can't place a door without there being at least one adjacent wall. That might be a sensible little restriction to put in there. But again, that's a user side restriction. The game engine is perfectly happy to let you do something like this, even though it makes no sense whatsoever. The other thing we can do is maybe work on some room detection, which would be fun to finally get started. And maybe we'll work out a more interesting little map here of some kind. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, folks. See you next time. Thank you to everyone who pledged to support this in February and is making these videos happen through March and early April. And of course, these mic check supporters. We've got Wes Eldenboving again, Craig Mortel, Nail Vikstrom, Neil Blakely Milner, Speedy Savant, Valent Cake Fiend, Aaron Toyson, Marius Field Vold, Old Peter, Talgo, probably Ole, Julian Ogier, Lafone, Steven Stager, Michael McClintock, Kale the Quick, Drazion, Bite Rash, Adjective, and Andrew Henninger. And everyone who just watches and shares and favorites and comments and subscribes, thank you so much for just continuing to make these videos a thing that we can do I think it's pretty awesome, and I hope you do too. See you next time, folks.